So, what kind of things did you learn about money growing up in your family of origin? What were the beliefs around money there?
Don't spend it.
Mm,
I grew up in a pretty frugal household. It was it was always if you leave a room, you turn the lights off.
mm,
You don't buy anything unless you buy it in bulk. You do everything you can to pinch pennies. My mother didn't work for quite a while she raised me. My dad kind of bounced around and was employed some of the time, was not employed some of the time. So my mom kind of stepped in and became a school teacher and started to get advanced degrees in education to kind of help out. But with all that being said, I mean, we lived in a very modest, I would say, low income, lower middle class
mm.
household. So frugality was key. We pinched money however we could, and that included, clothing, toys, frivolities of life, all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of that stuck with me. Luckily, I still have the same habits. I watch what the thermostat is set to. I make sure lights are turned off. All that kind of little stuff that I was taught growing up. But I think the most important thing that it taught me, quite honestly, was that I saw a lot of the pain that it caused at times in our life when money was tight. And there's a very distinct moment when I was a child, and I remember vividly thinking, when I have the means and the ability to do so, I don't ever want to be in this situation again. I don't ever want to have to want. I don't ever want anybody that depends on me or that's close to me to have to want. And I don't know what that looks like, but I am going to make sure that I can provide and that I have a free life when I get to that point.
So it sounds like, if I'm interpreting correctly, it sounds like you feel that some of the beliefs that you acquired around money growing up served you, and that others have not served you.
Um, yeah, I would say so. The most important takeaway for me was just what money can do for you, and that the value really isn't in the money; it's in what the money can do, right? And it's in what it can provide for those around you. It's in the freedom that it can provide. I don't care about the money. I care about the lifestyle. And there was a
Mm,
lot of things, growing up that I wanted to do, and I wanted to have the cool car like all the kids at school had, and I wanted to be able to go on trips and do all those kinds of things. And, I constantly heard no when I went and asked my parents. And more often than not, it came down to the economics of it. That we just couldn't afford it.
mm,
Um, so I think that's a really important lesson, was that it's not necessarily having the money, it's what the money can do and the freedom that it can
mm.
provide in your life.
Has there been a point in your life more recently where it's been a struggle to, let's say, step into a different mindset around money? I mean, I know a lot of people who are entrepreneurial, who start to become wealthy, can struggle with things like, when is my time worth enough, or am I using it valuably enough that I should be paying someone to clean my house, or paying people to wash my clothes, or paying someone to buy my groceries, as opposed to spending my own time doing those. Was it uh, how do things like that look in your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. And honestly, within the past few years, that's kind of been something that I've been very cognizant of, and I've oftentimes struggled with a good bit, which I think a lot of entrepreneur business owners do. We tend to be very type A personalities to think that we can do everything and nobody can do it better than us.
Hmm.
The issue with that is kind of, to your question, is that um, there's an opportunity cost that you're giving up in maintaining that egotism. Right. And I think that
Hmm.
it takes a little bit of kind of cutting your own teeth on your own businesses and, generating money in your own way, without an employer paying you, for you to realize how valuable that your time actually is. Right. I mean, if
Hmm.
you can see that consistent income coming in, strictly on your efforts and your efforts alone, I think it's very easy to conceptualize and quantify how much that your time is worth, right? So now
Hmm.
doing little tasks like cleaning a toilet bowl, or taking your dog out, or going and taking pictures of a property that you're about to sell because that's something you would normally do. Um, all of a sudden become very, very taxing in terms of your time and the opportunity cost and what you're giving up to do those, we'll call them menial tasks, to help your business run or to help your life run. I've had quite a bit of those opportunities to observe where my time can be better spent. And in hindsight, after contracting, or hiring those positions out, it's become extremely apparent how much more productive and how much more valuable that I can be working on higher level tasks than just working on those little things just because I thought that I could do them better. Even if somebody does them at, 65 to 70% of my capacity, I feel like I can beat that. I can create arbitrage on that time between that, 70% and that 100% with the additional value that I can go and create working on activities that drive revenue to my business.
Right. I mean, it depends on what you're talking about, but I mean, let's say if someone can only wash and fold my clothes 70% as well as I can do it myself, but they can do it for $20 an hour, and I could go earn $500 or $1,000 an hour doing some task while they're doing that, then at some point it becomes very worth it to outsource that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. If I have to pay them $20 an hour and I could do it in an hour, but it takes them an hour and a half. So now I paid them $30, but I went out and made 200. I win. Right. That's an advantageous scenario.
What was the first thing you ever did to earn money?
Cut grass. Yeah. Cut grass in the neighborhood where I grew up. Borrowed my dad's lawnmower. My dad, of course, charged me a fee to do that. And I went and started knocking on neighbors' doors. It was rough, man. I'm surprised he didn't charge me interest. Started knocking on neighbors' doors. I just saw it as an easy way. I think my dad gave me like $5 to cut the grass or something. I said, well, if he'll pay me $5, he's a cheapskate. I know that there's some people in this neighborhood that'll pay me more. So I started walking around, knocking on doors. Next thing you knew, I was cutting between 10 and 15 yards a week. My background is in software development, so I got into technology at a very young age. And I actually used the money from that business to very quickly save up enough to go buy a computer that was nicer than my parents that I could use to hack around on, which then in turn kind of got me, into a whole different set of revenue generating ventures. So that was kind of the start for me.
So it sounds like your the very first way you earned money was somewhat entrepreneurial. Was immediately after that something else entrepreneurial involving software, involving computers?
It really went into, it wasn't entrepreneurial after that. I mean, the next major thing that I went into was working a corporate job for a large tech company. And I did that for a number of years. I guess this goes back to the point that you made, right? That there were some things that I learned from my parent that were valuable and some things that were not. Some of the things that I learned that were not, where I had to change my beliefs at the latter stages in life, were that, the way to, accumulate wealth and provide for your family was to work for somebody else. That was the way to do it, the only way to do it. So I definitely dipped my toe in and did that for quite some time. I thought that was the way to kind of create financial freedom in your life. But, like probably a lot of people realize, it becomes very apparent that, albeit you can be making, a very good salary, a very high wage, it kind of seems like you're never really getting to where you need to be unless you're the CEO of a company or, you've got equity or something like that. You're still kind of getting that static amount, and you don't really accumulate wealth at the velocity that you feel like you should. That was the case with me anyway. So I had to kind of unlearn some of those things and realize that there was a better way out there, and that, the path to financial freedom was up to me. It wasn't up to somebody else that was going to be paying me a stipend.
What you're saying is very relatable. I've been working in software, working as an employee for other people's companies for about the last 7 years. And it took me a couple of years of doing that to have the little light bulb moment of, hey, wait, other people are becoming much wealthier than me as a result of this work I'm doing. I'm not capturing the majority of the productivity that I'm actually outputting.
Sure. Yeah. And what are they doing? They're doing what we just discussed, right? Their opportunity cost is greater working on the higher level revenue generating activities of the business, and they're hiring you out to create that opportunity cost for them. right?
Right.
And as you know, we all know, and we're taught by Mr. Kiyosaki, that is not the box that we need to be in, right? We need to be in the business owner box, not the trading time for money box.
Hmm. So was your entire career as an employee working for a single company?
No, I worked for a few. I worked for a few on and off. I also took some time off there in the middle to start my own software company. Exited that successfully, not as successfully as I should have, and probably a bit prematurely, to be honest with you. I was young, didn't really know any better, but it was a great start and an amazing learning opportunity. Post that, I was a little mentally exhausted. Went back into the corporate world. Um, Actually kind of went between startups and enterprise, and then ended up working for a startup that was acquired, worked there for a decent amount of time before I retired from software altogether.
Hmm. At what point in this whole trajectory, so I mean, it sounds like you went back and forth a few times from being uh, more entrepreneurial to working for someone else, entrepreneurial again to working for someone else again, and now entrepreneurial again. Um, so maybe this has happened to you more than once, but was there ever a moment, or did something happen that caused you to have a thought that having a job working for someone else wasn't going to be the path, or was it something that happened slowly over time?
It was probably slowly over time. It was probably slowly over time. It's the more that you do something, especially when it's a repetitive task, the more it wears on you, and the more that your
Mm,
your higher level brain kind of starts thinking about a better way to do it or an alternative way to do it. And I think for me it would have been a lot quicker, but I absolutely loved what I did.
mm,
I loved being in tech. The last job, the W-2 job that I worked was, I could not have asked for a better one.
mm,
And if that was the path for me, I probably would have worked that job for the rest of my life had I not known any better.
mm,
And that's why I say I think that it was delayed, right? I mean, if it was something that I really detested, and I couldn't stand sitting there in the cubicle every day and working on what I was working on, then it probably would have happened a lot quicker,
mm,
just out of necessity and sheer desire. But I liked doing what I was doing, so it wasn't extremely urgent to me. I just knew that I
mm,
needed to build something on the side. To make sure that I wasn't dependent on that income coming from somebody else.
mm.
I just didn't want to be in that position. That fear kind of started growing in me more and more, that, you never really know what's going to happen, right? I mean, a pandemic can come, a war can come, you never know what's going to happen, right? So I wanted to make sure that even if I chose to continue to do that job, I wanted to do it because I wanted to do it, not because I had to.
So it's not that you ever got burnt out on coding itself, for example. You just wanted to be proactive about having multiple streams of income.
That's it. That's it. Absolutely. And especially more so when I first started doing it, right? When I really
Mm,
started building a portfolio and learning about real estate and learning about, alternative passive income methods. I was still very much engaged and, very much in love with making software, designing software.
mm,
Um, the change really kind of came over time. I started to fall more in love with real estate. First of all, I started building, multiple businesses and multiple revenue streams. That time requirement started to become greater and greater. But aside from the time component of it, I also started to notice the life happiness component of
mm,
it, which was that it became extremely noticeable there towards the end that when I would have to context switch and work on my businesses, I was significantly more engaged, happier. I could work for hours and hours longer without ever looking at the clock. And then when I would go back to doing the W-2 stuff, it was the opposite of that. And I didn't have the same love for it and the same desire to work on that all hours of the night, like I did before I started working on my own ventures. And that feeling continued to grow and go more and more in the direction that I was just mentioning. And once I observed that about myself, I'm very much a lifestyle and a happiness guy. Once I started to make that observation about myself and I noticed the direction that it was trending, then I knew it was time to kind of create my exit path, if you will, and start planning for how I was going to step away and work on my ventures full time.
Isn't it amazing just how much more any of us care about any given project if A, the project was our idea, and B, there's no cap on how much we can benefit from it, and we're the ones who are going to capture the majority of the benefit.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the sense of reward. I mean, you ask, if you look at any survey of, the four keys or the five keys, to create happiness in a job or to create happiness for your employees, one of them is always a sense of accomplishment, right? And that's what working for yourself is, right? I mean, it's the ultimate sense of accomplishment. There's everything rides and dies on your shoulders, and there's no greater sense of accomplishment or failure that comes when you're the only one that you can look to either succeed or fail. And depending on your personality type, that can either be a very motivating or a very denigrating and deterministic type of thing. Luckily for me, that made me push harder, and the pressure and the reward for me just wanted to make me do it that much more. And I didn't feel that working for somebody else and trading time for money.
So when you made the final transition from W-2 to entrepreneurship, how long was the overlap, I guess, between when you first started building up multiple streams of income and when you left your W-2 job for good?
3 years and 10 months.
You knew that. You knew that immediately.
I knew it because I knew it because I knew the day that I bought my first rental property, and that's really what started it.
So that was the next question was going to be, what were the first baby steps you took? It sounds like the first one was buying that first rental property. Was that an easy decision for you? Was it just like, oh, real estate investing seems cool, I'll start looking, I'll buy this one? Or was there a lot that went in before you actually pulled the trigger on that investment?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. There was quite a bit that went on, and it's really to my detriment. I'm a very analytical person by nature. So, falling into that analysis paralysis was actually quite easy for me. And the thing that I found, I read a ton, watched a ton of YouTube videos, ton of blogs. I consumed, massive quantities of information. Which made it even harder, right? Because it gave me that much more ammunition to analyze the heck out of everything that I wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew the strategy that I wanted to execute. But when it comes time to pulling the trigger, it's very easy to be scared at that point, right? And the defining moment for me in that transition was really finding somebody that had been doing it for quite a while. I don't know if I want to call them a mentor, but I found somebody that had been successfully investing in real estate for over 20 years. And I made it my mission to keep that person very close to me, but also be very respectful of their time. So I would learn as much as I possibly could. And then I would go to them with very, very informed, educated, finite questions that they could answer yes or no, or in a sentence or two, and then be done with me and go back to working on their time, because their time is very valuable. And one of the best things that I did was maintain that relationship, because, when I finally found a property that I thought was a good fit, I'm looking at it and I'm picking apart everything that can go wrong with it. And I put it in front of him and he looks at it for 10 seconds and he's like, yep, buy it. And I'm like, well, what about like this? Like, what if this goes wrong? Or what if this thing goes wrong? Or like this, the sky's falling. And he's like, shut up, man. Just put your money to work. Like, just go fucking do it. And that's really all that it took. It was just somebody that I had trust in, that had a phenomenal track record, that I could believe in, and I could trust their advice, and just that little nudge of just saying, yes, go commit your money, go do this thing, made all the difference in the world for me. And I don't know if I would have done that without having that person kind of looking over my shoulder just to give me that little bit of extra confidence. Right. And that was a huge help. And that's a piece of advice that I would give anybody, right? Just find somebody that knows what it is that you're doing, that you have confidence in. So when they give you a piece of advice or tell you to execute, then you have the utmost confidence in them having confidence in you.
How did you find that mentor, and what made him stand out above other real estate investors you knew or other potential mentors?
He was a friend of a friend of a friend that I just met a couple of times in passing, and had heard him talk about what he did. He did a variety of different types of investing, but he was a real estate broker, a full-time investor, bought apartment complexes, did syndications, all this stuff. And the more that I learned about real estate, the more I kind of realized that he was doing a lot of the higher level stuff that was pretty difficult to do, and kind of took the cojones to do. And he was just a well-spoken, intelligent dude, and also very friendly, very approachable. So, I approached him. I told him, this is kind of the strategy. This is what I want to do. I don't want to buy one or two properties. I really want to build a rental portfolio. This is kind of what I'm thinking. Does this make sense? Do these strategies work? Is this legal? Like, can you do all this stuff? Is it feasible, in the state that we live in, and, with the amount of money that I have to start with, and whatnot. And that just kind of got the conversation going. I never went to him and said, hey, I want you to mentor me or anything like this. It was just kind of asking him, very selective questions, and trying to be really respectful of his time, and also maintaining a personal relationship with him, and anytime he would give me something valuable, I would ask him how I could help him. Is there something I can go do for you? Is there, some underwrite, I'm good with software, I'm good with spreadsheets, that kind of stuff. Can I help you out with, any of the operational stuff of your business, just so I can provide some value too. I don't want to just take. And I think that there's a lesson in that too.
I think you definitely nailed it with providing value to the person you'd like to be your mentor, and asking them, doing your homework so you can ask them intelligent questions. Because I think there are a million people out there, there are a dime a dozen, who will say like, hey, I need a mentor. I have no idea where to start. Please tell me what to do. It's, that's easy to say. Yep. I don't know what to do. Please help. It's difficult to say, I've done my homework. I have specific questions, and I'll provide value if you can answer them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it puts, it puts that, the person in that mentor role in a tough position if you just throw out a blanket statement like, hey, can you help me? Or like, what should I do? I want to get into real estate. What should I do? I'm like, I don't know, man.
Read these 100
there's
books.
A million different ways. Yeah, exactly. Like, and totally. And that's what I always tell people. I said, look, here's 5 book recommendations. Go read them, and you let me know what speaks to you, and what path you want to go down, what strategy you want to go down, because there's a million different ways in real estate to make money. So you let me know what sounds like it fits your lifestyle, and then come back to me when you've done a little bit of research.
I mean, I think if someone came to me and said, I want to invest in real estate, but I don't know how to do it, and I have no money, what should I do? Like, I have no foundation. I would probably tell them something like, go read The Miracle Morning. Or, start there. Like, here's a list of 10 books you could read. Here's a list of habits you can incorporate into your life, and that would give you a foundation. But I think a lot of people want to, they want to start at the fun part where the money starts coming in.
That's it. And you touched on something pretty poignant there, I think, too. I've had discussions about this quite a bit. I think that's one of the things that kind of separate, from the people that I talk to that actually go and execute and come back and are good at it, which are a select few. I think that's what separates them from those that just kind of don't. And it's that delayed gratification concept, right? I mean, there's without to get too political here, we live in a society that's very much in line with instant gratification. There's a lot of things that are shoved in our face very, very easily without us having to do anything to acquire those things, from media to money to sex to all kinds of things. There's a bevy of resources available to us, but not everything works like that, right? And too many people have been programmed to just think that you can put in minimal effort, just like, signing up for an app and, have all this stuff that comes to you in terms of wealth. And that's just not the way that it works, right? I mean, you have to be okay with delayed gratification. You have to be okay with understanding that you are going to implement some actions today that are not going to get you anything for quite some time down the road. But then at some point, you just have to have the faith that those actions are going to start to compound, and then that snowball is just going to start rolling downhill, right? But you can tell people that until they're blue in the face, but you really have to believe it inside yourself, that you're sacrificing all this time now for an eventual payoff for that to work out for you and really apply to your life, and for you to stick with it, right?
Do you think that delayed gratification was something that came to you naturally, or was that something you had to cultivate to be able to work for delayed gratification?
I think it's I think it's something that you have to work at. But I think the way that you work at it is watching what other people do, right? And that's what gives you the confidence. That's what always really worked for me, right? I mean, like so many people, I got my majority of my education on Bigger Pockets, right? I
Hmm.
went through like 300 podcasts on Bigger Pockets, but I picked out the ones and got the most value from the ones where it was just somebody telling their story. Like I don't want to hear somebody, on a diatribe telling me their philosophical beliefs and all that stuff. The most value for me was hearing how somebody went from zero to a couple of million, right? I like,
Mm.
how did you build a business? How did you execute? What steps, what was your mindset? What was your goal setting techniques? How did you get there? And if I believe that person, that's way more valuable to me than just reading like concepts in a book, for an example, right? There's still
Mm.
some value there, but if I can see that this person that I can reach out and I can talk to and I can touch, they did it, then if they can do it, then I should be able to do it.
Mm.
So that was, going back to your question, that was how I worked at it. Right. And it was really just a repetitive muscle. It was seeing people that continued to do it. And the more people that I saw that did it and that told their story, the more confidence it gave me, that the actions that I was putting in today are going to pay off at some point, because I'm doing all the right stuff. I'm doing everything that they're doing and I'm trying to improve upon it. It's got to pay off at some point. And if it doesn't, it doesn't, and it's on to the next thing. Right.
So what did you do, or what do you do to keep your mindset healthy? Because the longer I am in this game, the more I realize that mindset's everything. That there's not many things I can't do with the right mindset, and there's not much I can do with the wrong mindset.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's a very broad question, and I think it ranges from. I think it starts with diet, exercise, proper sleep,
Mm.
taking care of your body. I think that it's the relationships that you maintain and the people that you put yourself around. I mean
Mm.
that's got a huge impact in your life, right? I mean, if you're hanging around a bunch of naysayers that are saying, like, that's never going to work, that's crazy, that's a scam, you're wasting your time, that's not how you get rich, there's no get rich quick schemes, it'll never work, da da da. It, subconsciously that weighs on you, right? I mean, it absolutely does. And conversely, if you're putting yourself around super high achievers, and you're mirroring your life after them, or like the people that you're hearing on podcasts or whatever, I think that's got a very polarizing effect on you as well in the other direction, right? I mean, that helps put you in a stable frame of mind. Um, so yeah, that's huge. Eagles don't fly with ducks and pigeons is one of my absolute favorite sayings. I love it. It's used to death, but it's great, man. And it's the truth. You put yourself around really good people that can help and mentor and encourage you, and that aren't going to shun you or denigrate you for talking about growth and personal development and just being a better person, better businessman, and just making your life better overall. You want the people around you that are going to encourage you to do that, not
Mm.
that are going to judge you for it or think that you're expelling those virtues for the wrong reasons or for
Mm.
egotistical reasons or whatever. Forget those people.
So were there relationships that you had to give up or take a big step back from as a result of making the move more to entrepreneurship and wealth building?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I've always had really good people around me. My friends and family are fantastic, and I've always put a fair amount of energy, I think, into maintaining those relationships.
Mm.
But there was a definitive point a few years ago, and it was around the time that I kind of started going down this path of building a portfolio and passive income and learning about business, that I kind of realized that a lot of the things that I was doing and the people that I was associating with weren't really helping me get anywhere, right? They were increasing my network numbers and making me feel good about that I had more
Mm.
friends. But that was about it. They were okay just kind of skating through life. I could see the glassy look in their eyes if I would talk about something that I just learned that I was really energetic and passionate about, that could change my life or could make me a better person. Just complete ghost town. I mean, they
Mm.
couldn't care. It's, hey, let's go, let's have the conversation about movies or pop
Mm.
culture, or something like that. And it's just stuff that I'm not interested in. So I realized
Mm.
that I really needed to watch the amount of time that I spent with those kinds of people. And I also needed to make a concerted effort to try to find people that were very much like me, which there wasn't many of in my original circle. So I really had to go and seek those people out. And, I kind of did that through networking groups and RIA meetings. The people that I saw as the high performers, or that were doing the kinds of things that I wanted to do, or were the place that I want it to be. GoBundance is a phenomenal example of that, right? I mean, that was a very calculated move to put myself in a higher class of individuals and business owners, so that, you know, hopefully I can give some, and I can learn a ton. Because it's very hard to find those like-minded individuals in everyday life, you know, that's just that you've grown up with and are in your social circle.
So flashing back to the time when you were in that transitional phase, when you had some multiple streams of income, but were still working your W-2 job, during that time, how did you think about when the right time would be to make the leap to leave your day job? How did you know when it was the right time?
It changed quite a bit. It's really easy to tell yourself in the beginning, well, quantitatively, I want to completely replace my W-2 income. And that might be harder for some people than for others, depending on the type of income that you're earning, right? You know, and you know, my W-2 income kept going up. I was always pretty good at that job, so I was always kind of chasing that number. So I had to kind of, you know, modify. I had to kind of modify that end line for me a couple of different times, because I didn't want to just keep chasing that income, right? I mean, what I really wanted to do was create the freedom in my life and to really, you know, make my own rules, run my own businesses, and you know, live wherever I want to, work wherever I want to. So there came a point where I said, okay, you know, I was pushing as much as I could to increase my horizontal income to try to get close to my W-2 income. But the amazing thing that happens with that, especially with real estate, is that your net worth and your, you know, collection of assets kind of grows secondarily to that, right? So it's, to me, you know, I was so focused on the horizontal income and just hitting that number to replace, you know, to be 100%er and to replace, you know, my W-2 income and be able to cover all of my monthly expenses with the passive income that was coming in. I admittedly kind of forgot about the net worth that was kind of growing alongside that just inherently comes with it, right? So it kind of got to a point where I was like, well, I'm close. I'm very close, but I'm not where I said that I wanted to be. I can't completely replace my W-2 income with this passive income that I'm getting, you know, on a monthly or an annually basis. But then I really started to dive into it, and I said, you know what? I really started modeling it and running the math, and I'm like, man, even if I, you know, I'm a couple of $1,000s short, you know, on a monthly basis of what I was making, it's with my lifestyle and living conservatively, it's going to be damn near impossible, you know, with the returns that I'm going to be earning from the net worth component as well, you know, with property appreciation and, you know, the value of businesses increasing, that I can spend that money, or I can go backwards by any means. Like I have to still go forwards, and I just couldn't create any mathematical scenario where my net worth slid backwards or I lost money. So once I kind of started to get to that point, I said, okay, I feel pretty comfortable now. And I think I've been looking at it, you know, the wrong way. I also realized at that juncture that I needed to give myself a little bit more credit, and that it was a little bit faulty in thinking that when I step away from my W-2 job, that I would just have to have everything covered, because I'm giving credit as an earner or the knowledge that I've accumulated in making money, right? If I free up those, you know, 40 to 50 hours a week, I've put a lot of money into education and understanding how to generate income that is now, you know, 40 to 50 extra hours that I have to make additional money that I wasn't making before. And I just didn't, it was hard for me to have the faith in myself to do that. And, you know, I'm halfway through the year here, and coincidentally, you know, I'll make more this year than I would have just off of, you know, one of my businesses, than I would have, if I would have worked my W-2 job for the entire year. And I never thought that would have happened. Like that was not in my, you know, in my estimation, in my planning for the transition, none of that. I absolutely in no way saw that happening, but it was just a result of, you know, oh shit, I just quit. I don't have a paycheck coming in anymore. If I don't hunt, I don't eat. And going back to my personality type, that just really worked for me. So it was the onus was so much more on me to get up and to work hard every single day, that it's ended up generating what will be for me a better year than had I worked a W-2 job, which is a pretty a cool thing to see. And it also takes a lot of the pressure off me and you know, some of those fears of stepping away from the security of having that static income coming in.
So in a sense, you left the W-2 job before you felt ready and just kind of threw your hat over the fence and said, I'm going to make more money as an entrepreneur because now I have no choice.
That's it. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
it. It's yeah, it wasn't completely burning the ship. But it was definitely taking a leap of faith for sure.
Mm.
I helped to hedge my bet a little bit in starting a new business, kind of middle of last year when I said, okay, like I really want to quit. I'd like to take one more step to kind of hedge my bet a bit and create a little bit more security revenue that's coming in. And the business started doing okay on a month to month basis, but I only let that run for a few months. And I said, okay, with all the things that I just mentioned, plus this, active revenue that is now coming in from this new business, it's time to take the leap. All those things combined gave me the confidence, I guess.
Mm. What does your day to day or a typical week look like for you now compared to when you were a W-2 employee?
Well, it's a lot more giving direction than taking it.
Mm.
Interestingly enough, when I was a W-2 employee, I fervently declined opportunities to get into management because it's just
Mm.
never been my personality. I did never want to manage people. I very much favor being in control of my own destiny and not having to, rise or fall on the successes and failures of others. Um, I was in an individual contributor type of role, right? And
Mm.
then contrast that now, especially as I start to hire out more and more pieces of my businesses. um, I'm much more of a manager, uh, and much more of a higher level thinker, right? I mean, it's the first thing that I try to do every day is work on all of my revenue generating activity before I get to anything else in the business, anything operational
Mm.
or, any future business, future deal, anything like that. It is, where am I going to find deals? How am I going to keep money coming in? Because that's the first thing that needs to happen. Everything else is secondary. All the other emails can wait. All the other notifications can wait. So compartmentalizing my time has been a really interesting change, right? I mean, I went
Mm.
from a very project-based environment where I had a goal, I had a 2 week sprint. I had this type of functionality that I needed to develop. It was very easy for me to say, okay, that's where I need to be. I am here now. Here's the small little steps I need to take to get there. And this is where I need to be at the end of 2 weeks. Very cut and dry, right? When the bell rang at 5 o'clock, I could stop, I could pick back up the next day, and my income didn't change at all, which is very, very different from the way that it is today.
Mm. I've never been in management either. It's kind of struck me that being in middle management in a large company seems like the worst of all possible worlds because you have all the responsibilities of management, but you have none of the upsides of entrepreneurship, and that you're still, you're not going to be the one capturing uh, the majority of the value created by your team or your company. It's going to go up over your head unless you're way upper management,
Right.
unless you're a C-suite executive or board member.
Exactly. And it's hard to get to those positions depending on the type of company that you're in. You really have to work hard to do it. The position that I was in, in tech in general, especially software, I actually saw greater opportunities as an individual contributor. If you were a really, really good
Mm-hmm.
engineer, you could do a heck of a lot better without having to worry about all of the stuff with managing other people
Yep.
financially, than you could taking the managerial track. Because to your point, it's very easy to get kind of stuck in the middle there before you hit that, director or C level status,
Mm,
to where you really, really start getting compensated well.
right. And if you're a very efficient individual contributor in software, you can probably make, a really high full-time salary working 10, 15 hours a week if you manage your time correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Completely. Completely. If you're better at it than the next guy, you can crank out the
Hmm.
same functionality in the same amount of
Right.
time, or you can do more and then get recognized better for it. And you're still working the same amount of hours. Right.
Mm,
I was also very scared of losing the passion going down the managerial track, to be
mm,
quite honest with you, because it goes back to that sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. As an individual contributor, I liked building things, and that was my sense of accomplishment. It was really cool to look back and be like, oh, hey, I did that. Like, here's this thing that I built from nothing and it works, and people are using it all around the world. That was extremely fulfilling to me. And making the transition to just managing resources scared the crap out of me, because I thought
mm,
that I would lose that. I don't think that with my personality I would have seen the same level of fulfillment and accomplishment in that type of a role.
mm. So, nowadays, if someone, let's say someone in an elevator asks you, you have 30 seconds to describe what you do. How do you describe what you do to people now?
It's so hard, man. I really need to rehearse that. Entrepreneur business owner is probably the easiest way to frame it. Software industry expat. First and foremost, I'm a real estate investor. I am a buy and hold investor. So I will buy anything that's a deal. I favor buying apartment complex and multi-units, but if a single family is a deal, I will buy that. There's some way to make money off of anything. And I also own a company that builds and buys companies that own online assets like blogs and e-commerce stores. So that's kind of a whole nother different ball of wax.
And this call is our first meeting. I did Google you yesterday and found your website. It seems like you have you consult for real estate investors. You found a way to roll up your real estate investing into a business where you help other investors.
Yeah, so that's believe it or not, that is I try to make that as altruistic as possible. When I started getting close to leaving my W-2 job, I said, man, what am I going to do? Am I going to get bored? Am I going to have enough to work on? And I said, you know what? One thing I've always really been wanting to do, and I made a promise to myself to do it, was to create some type of a platform or help out other investors that just didn't quite know how to get going or didn't quite know how to scale a portfolio or run it the right way. Because there was a point to where I was in that position as well, right? And like I mentioned to you, there was the one guy that really helped nudge me over the edge. That guy changed my life. And in turn, real estate changed my life. So if I could do that for just one other person, that would make me just unbelievably fulfilled. I'm not a write a check to a charity kind of guy. So that is my attempt to just help out other investors walk the same path that I am. And it's, the side benefit for me is I get to, meet a lot of great people and hear a lot of different perspectives on investing and life and family and, where people want to go and lifestyle design and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what I try to do with the platform.
Now, do you feel like it took you a lot of time to hit your stride as an investor, as an entrepreneur? Were there a lot of stumbling blocks?
Yes. And it's, specific to real estate because that's where I primarily focused for the first couple of years. The answer is definitely yes, because it's not, especially when your strategy is to be a buy and hold investor. It's just not a sexy thing, right? It goes back to that delayed gratification. I mean, it's not, you put money into stuff, you might, put in some work into it to burr it and create some value, but it still sits there. You don't really see the money from it, immediately. So you have to kind of be okay with just understanding that you're really, planting the seeds in the forest, and having the faith that one day that it's, those are going to sprout and pop out of the ground. Right. So I think that was the hardest thing for me was like, man, I am working my butt off. I'd get off work. I would work, on finding deals until 8, 9 o'clock at night, or, nurturing the deals that I had, or, working with property manager or rehabbers on, current projects and all this kind of stuff. But I just wasn't seeing a lot back from it, right? I mean, if you run the numbers on a single family rental, especially nowadays, you're lucky after debt if you're making, $200, $150 a month, you're not going to get rich doing that, right? But I really had to focus on the end game in mind and knowing that if I scaled that 100x, like now we're talking about good money, right? And not to mention the knowledge that I was going to accumulate along the way to help me do bigger and better deals and leverage better and stronger partnerships along the way.
So you made it more about deal flow, creating systems, building a team when you're real estate investing.
I had to, because I put so much time into my W-2 job. And I vowed that I wouldn't let that suffer. I've always been a pretty dedicated and loyal employee, which I think really served me well. And I always took ownership over my products. So I did never want to let that suffer, especially making, the kind of money that software developers make, just somebody, if they're paying me to do that and my time, I'm distracted by this shiny ball over here, and I'm not giving them my full effort that I promised them that that's just not right. And it doesn't sit right with me morally. So to do that and to build, a real estate business on the side, I think you have to get really good at, hiring, time management and systems. You don't have the time that somebody has that's doing it organically, that has 100% of their time to commit to this thing. So you really have to get good at, trusting the people to do, what you've hired them to do. And you have to be able to, manage your projects and your properties and at a quick glance, without being disheveled and disorganized and having to look all over the place to try and piece everything together every time that you need an answer, or every time that a broker's asking you for a piece of information, or a closing attorney's asking you for, a real estate agent's asking for it. It should all be right there. You should be able to pull it up. And if you can't, then you should write that down and build a system or change your organization to where the next time that type of person asks you for that piece of information, you can have it at a moment's notice. I mean, I can't tell you how many people that are in those type of positions, like insurance agents and brokers and everything, that are like, yeah, sure, we can get this loan started for you, or we can get you this quote, but we're going to need these 20 things plus a colonoscopy. And I'm like, well, cool. Here's 19 of them. They're in your inbox right now. Go check it. And they're like, oh shit. Like you're organized. You've been doing this. You have your stuff together. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do this every single, I refi a property every month. I don't need to, be able to take the time to aggregate all of this stuff if I'm disheveled and have to do it every month. That's just a complete waste of, and is completely inefficient.
That also builds your credibility and gets you to be higher priority for a professional like that when you are that organized.
Absolutely. And I've got a really good anecdote for that. I'm doing a refi on a 24 unit apartment complex that I own. And one of the banks that I called, small bank in the area, don't do a lot of loans, but I was kind of trying to sell myself. He's, tell me a little bit of background about you, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, okay, these are the things that we're going to need. And then I'm actually going to need to present you as a person, as a guarantor to my VP to see if this is something that we would like to take on, because we really don't normally do deals of this size, et cetera, et cetera. He said, so I'll need all this information. And I said, what's your email address? And he gave it to me. And I said, okay, you have it. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I just sent it to you. And he said, so you have it all there already, right? And he looks at it and he had, I sent him my portfolio sheet that has all of my properties, any metric you could possibly ever want to glean out of the property, price to rent ratios, calculations, amount of debt on the property, all that kind of stuff. I keep it all in one kind of master sheet that other sheets feed into. And he's like, I've never seen anything like this. This is amazing. He said, I can tell you for sure that this is going to put you ahead of the pack, because it seems like you really have your shit together and you're a professional. So that's awesome. To your point. Yeah.
So we hear a lot of similar advice when it comes to telling people about what to do to become financially free. And a lot of it's good advice. A lot of things are cliched for a reason. Buy cash flowing assets, et cetera. Do you have any unconventional advice for someone who's looking to move down that path? Advice that you don't hear commonly given?
This might be slightly controversial. I'm pretty good at advice of that type. I don't like buying primary residences. Investors come to me all the time and they're like, oh yeah, totally, I'm about to get into investing. I'm just going to buy a house first, and then I'm going to do this. And I'm like, well, how much money do you have laying around? And they're like, 60 grand, but I'm gonna put that all into the house. I'm like, well, then what are you going to use to invest? I mean, to me, I don't think that a primary residence is an investment. I don't. To me, an investment is something that pays you on a monthly basis. A house does not do that. Is it going to appreciate? More than likely. Are you going to make money off it? More than likely, if you don't screw it up. But run the math on it. Right. I mean, run the math on that versus taking that same 50, 60, 80K and going and putting it in even just a single family rental. I can almost guarantee you, unless you're just getting a steal of a deal, that you're going to yield more, over the couple of years that you're going to own that asset off that rental property than you will just on hoping that your property appreciates. I mean, that's really the only way to make money off of a primary residence, right? You are hoping. And when I buy a cash flowing asset, I buy a cash flowing asset. I don't buy it because I think it's going to appreciate. Do I try to hedge my bets and buy in paths of gentrification and areas that I think are going to do really well in the future? Of course, but I don't bank on that. It does not go into my underwriting at all. Not 1%. It is, how does it cash flow and how can I add value to it? And then what's the debt structure going to look like after I add the value to it? That's it.
So is this to say that you own a lot of other people's homes and you rent your home?
I do own my primary residence. It's a small condo, but I told myself I would not do it until I was a millionaire, and I stood behind that assertion. And it was a very good deal, one that I could add a good bit of value to, and ended up being able to refi it and pull my cash back out. So I'm really right back in the same situation that I would have been in, right? I mean, I'm still able to take that capital to deploy in other deals. There's not a lot sitting in it, and I'm completely fine with that. I don't need equity sitting in the thing. I'm much happier to take that capital and deploy it into projects that I know can yield, double-digit returns for me.
Makes a lot of sense. Have you found that the flow of money in your life is connected to flow in other areas of your life?
Um, yeah, I don't know if it's that way or the other way. I tend to get much happier when the money is flowing well. I do think that there's some, universal connectedness there. But it goes back to mindset, right? I mean, if you are, not to get too hippy dippy, but if you're putting out, good vibes and good energy into the universe, and you're taking care of the people around you, and you're just an overall happy person and are doing what you can do to be your best person and to help out those around you that need a little bit of assistance, the good things are going to come. I mean, that's just karma 101, right? If you are trying to screw people over and nickel and dime everybody and not pay broker commissions and pay your contractors as little as possible, I think you're going to make as little as possible. Because it might not be on that one, it might be on the next one. They're going to get you, right? I mean, they're gonna remind themselves that you tried to skimp, you tried to save, you tried to take money out of their kids' mouths. They're not going to do as good of a job for you on the next one, if they're even around for the next one. So I think that's kind of the karma flywheel with the way that energy flows in life, as it applies to business and especially real estate investing. You take care of people and it comes back around to you. To more directly answer that, I'm a pretty happy dude. So I don't really have a lot of swings. I mean, I am unbelievably fortunate. And for me to say otherwise would just make me an asshole. So my flow is pretty good in terms of happiness and and lifestyle and everything. It's kind of hard for me to answer that question, I guess, from a happiness perspective.
So now that you have more financial freedom, what do you like to spend more time doing that you didn't do as much when you had a W-2 job?
So I have a lot of hobbies. I'm a very active person. I'm outside all the time. I love exercise. I run, I ride a bike, all that kind of stuff. In the winters, I absolutely love to snowboard. A good bit of time and live out west in Colorado during the winters and snowboard for a couple of months at a time. I still work the whole time, but it's nice to just be able to go out and go shred for a couple hours. I also skydive quite frequently, so that's kind of my summertime activity. So the change has allowed me to train more and put a little bit more time into those kind of things. And it's also allowed me to spend a little bit more time with my family, which was always kind of something that nagged at me. I mean, I went pretty hard for a couple of years building the business. So I'm trying to make up for lost time and spend more time with my parents and my siblings as a result.
So are there any top books you would recommend to people, whether specifically in regards to wealth building, investment, leaving your W-2 job, or just building the foundation for those things, or for a better life in general?
The one that I gift the most often is Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. I freaking love that book. I probably listen to it once a year or reread it. It's just such a good book. And, like we talked about it, mindset's really, really important to me. And I think that it just speaks to the confidence that you need to have in life. Right. And it speaks to that delayed gratification. If you positively believe something's going to happen and you focus on it hard enough, you tell yourself that you are that kind of person that deserves that kind of thing. And it comes true, man. I mean, I could give you a number of examples in my own life, just from reading that book and habits that I started doing, every morning when I woke up and every night before I went to bed, that have all come true and have brought me to the point that I'm at. So that one is a phenomenal book.
Yeah, it is. So what's the best, if people are looking to get more information about you or get in touch with you, what's the best place to look? Would you direct them to your website or social media handle, or what's the best place to learn more about what you're doing?
Yep. My website is a good place. JonathanSpaeth.com, SPAETH.com. I also have a YouTube channel. You can search for my name. I'm starting to put content out there. I just started doing that about a month or so ago. There's links from that to my website. I've also got a public Facebook group. And that is probably the central place where I release most of my content. So if you search for me on Facebook, you should be able to find me. You can message me. It's called Real Estate and Passive Income Mastery. So anytime I write a blog article, YouTube stuff, anything that I think would be helpful in an investing career, I've started doing webinars. I publish it directly through that group.
That's super cool. Yeah, I'll make sure we put links to all your stuff in in the newsletter, and whenever this ends up getting released as a podcast or YouTube video, we'll put them in the show notes. Now, as far as like a blurb, like an intro for you, what's, if we had to describe you in like 20 words, I could say like, I'm a software engineer and, real estate investor and aspiring entrepreneur who lives in Austin, Texas, with my fiance and our cat, and I like Brazilian jiu-jitsu and mountain biking.
Yeah, software industry expat. Real estate investor, entrepreneur, and lifestyle design ninja.
Awesome. And you really like skydiving and snowboarding, it sounds like.
I do. Like two absolute passions of mine. Yeah, I got into snowboarding first. Got into skydiving about 6 years ago now. Completely changed my life. Met my current fiance through the sport. I have met so many amazing people. It's brought me to some really, really cool places. A lot of great countries. Just a super cool thing to do. So I absolutely love doing both of those.
You got to do something that gets the adrenaline pumping. You got to do something. You got to put something on the line at some point. If there's no risk, and then it doesn't have enough juice.
You're preaching to the choir, man. You're preaching to the choir, and it's there's a biochemical reaction that happens too. I mean, endorphins are released the harder that the challenge in front of you is, right? So whether that's business or relationships or jumping out of an airplane, the harder that thing is, the better that happiness release is when you get to the end of it and you look back and you say, wow, cool, I did that thing. So I'm always looking to find those things that are harder and harder to make the summit that much better, so to speak.
For me, for a long time, it's been Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's like I could be absolutely miserable, like getting the shit kicked out of me. Not literally kicked, but like just end up in a bad spot a lot, like really tired and gassed, have trouble breathing, just get my ass kicked. But it feels great afterwards. Like, afterwards, it's like my mind is empty. My mind's not racing. I'm not anxious. It's just clean.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing like being scared, man. A lot of people run from scared. I think it's a really, really valuable emotion that you can harness.
Fucking A, man. That's good stuff. I think that's a great note to end on.
Yeah. I like it.
It's good. It's good to get to know you a little bit, Jonathan. Are you going to come to the Go Abundance event in Steamboat in August?
Yeah, I am already registered. I can't wait. That'll actually be my first one in person. So I'm pretty stoked about it. My travel plans are gonna be pretty circuitous to get there. But I'm working that out. So right on, I can't wait.
I'll be there, so I'll meet you there.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Thanks for taking the time. And I'll let you know when it's getting ready to go out.
Please do. Thanks for having me, man. It was really good talking to you, and look forward to meeting you.
Same. Take care, Jonathan.
All right. See ya.
Bye.